Jinho Park stood at the observation deck of the human ship Harmony, watching the massive space station grow larger in the viewport. The Galactic Council station was beautiful in a way that took his breath away. Crystal spires twisted around metal frameworks while energy fields danced between floating platforms. Ships from dozens of different worlds moved in perfect formation around the station. "First time seeing it never gets old," said Hana Kim, walking up beside him. She was his second in command for this mission and one of Earth's best diplomats. "Hard to believe we're really here," Jinho nodded. 3 months ago, humanity had received their first message from space. The Galactic Council had been watching Earth for years, waiting for humans to develop faster-than-light travel. When they finally did, the invitation came immediately. Earth was being asked to join a community of over 300 different species. "Are you nervous?" Hannah asked. "A little," Jinho admitted. "We've prepared for this moment for so long. Now it's actually happening." Behind them, the rest of the human delegation was busy with final preparations. Dr. So-Young Choi was reviewing her medical research files. She would be presenting humanity's advances in healing and disease prevention. Taemin Lee was checking the cultural gifts they had brought from Earth. Each item had been carefully chosen to show the best of human creativity and craftsmanship. The Harmony docked with the station with barely a vibration. Jinho had picked the ship's name himself. He wanted their first impression to be one of peace and cooperation. The ship was sleek and white, with no visible weapons. Of course it had defenses, but they were hidden. Jinho believed in being prepared, but he also believed in showing good faith. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. On the other side waited 3 beings unlike anything humans had ever seen in person. The first was tall and thin, made entirely of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through its body in slow, hypnotic patterns. This was Ambassador Kethver of the Veltar, one of the oldest races in the galaxy. The second being floated in a containment suit filled with glowing gas. Its voice came through a translator device. "Welcome, humans of Earth. I am flowing through stars of the Nephim Collective." The third was the most alien of all. It looked like a giant insect, but it moved with intelligence and purpose. Its 4 arms gestured in what the humans had been told was a greeting. "I am Hive Speaker Zixtel of the Krix Empire. We have waited long to meet your kind." Jinho stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture that could be understood by most species. "I am Jinho Park, speaking for the people of Earth. We are honored to be here." The crystal being, Kethver, made a sound like wind chimes. The translator turned it into words. "Your species shows much promise. Your world is harsh, yet you have survived and grown strong. This interests the Council greatly." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they moved. The station was alive with activity. Beings of every shape and size went about their business. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Jinho couldn't figure out how they moved or communicated. "The Council meets in the Great Chamber," explained Flowing Through Stars. "There you will present your people to the gathered representatives." The Great Chamber was enormous. It could have held a small city. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in sections arranged by their biological needs. Some areas were filled with water, others with different gases. Some had gravity fields pointing in different directions. At the center of it all was a raised platform where the human delegation now stood. Jinho looked out at the thousands of beings watching them. Some seemed curious, others appeared bored. A few looked suspicious. "Beings of the Council," Jinho began, his voice carried to every corner by the translation system. "We come from a small blue world at the edge of your territory. We call it Earth. We are young compared to most of you, but we come with open hearts and eager minds." He gestured to Dr. So-Young Choi, who stepped forward. "We bring gifts of knowledge. Our medical science has found ways to heal injuries and cure diseases. We offer this freely to any who need it." A murmur went through the chamber. Sharing advanced medical knowledge was unusual. Most species kept their best discoveries secret. Tae-min Lee presented the cultural gifts. Art, music, and literature from Earth's many peoples. The aliens examined them with various senses, some seeing colors humans couldn't imagine, others hearing sounds beyond human range. "What do you want in return?" asked a voice from the assembly. Jinho couldn't see who spoke, but the translation made it clear the speaker was suspicious. "To learn," Jinho replied simply. "To grow, to be part of something larger than ourselves. We have spent our entire history fighting each other. We want to try something different." Hive speaker Zixtel clicked its mandibles together. "Your world is classified as a Class 12 death world. How did you become so peaceful living in such a dangerous place?" Jinho smiled. "We learned that working together made us stronger than fighting alone. Our world taught us to adapt, to help each other survive. We chose cooperation over conquest." The crystal being Kethver pulsed with slower light patterns. "Interesting. Most deathworld species become aggressive, territorial. You chose differently." "We had to," said Hana Kim, stepping forward. "Our world didn't just try to kill us with predators or disasters. It challenged us in every way possible, whether that could freeze or cook us in hours. Diseases that jumped between species. Gravity that crushed some visitors from other worlds. We survived by being flexible, by taking care of each other." Dr. So-Young Choi added, "We studied everything that tried to kill us. We learned from it. Our medicine is good because we had to fight so many different threats. We learned to see patterns, to adapt quickly." "And now you offer this knowledge?" "Freely?" asked another voice. "Yes," Jinho said firmly. "We believe that helping others makes everyone stronger. A healthy galaxy is better for all of us." The session continued for hours. The humans answered questions about their technology, their culture, their history. Some questions were friendly, others seemed designed to test their responses. Through it all, Jinho and his team remained patient and helpful. Finally, Kethver rose from its crystalline seat. "The Council will consider your application for membership. You will be granted observer status while we decide. Welcome to the galactic community, humans of Earth." As they left the great chamber, Jinho heard fragments of conversation from the alien representatives. Most seemed positive, though some were clearly uncertain about these newcomers. "They seem harmless enough," said one voice. "Almost too eager to please," said another. "A deathworld species that chose peace, unusual?" Back on the Harmony, the human delegation celebrated quietly. They had made it through their first day without any major mistakes. "What did you think?" Hannah asked Jinho as they watched the station's lights through the viewport. "They underestimate us," he said quietly. "They see our offers of help as weakness. They think because we choose peace we're incapable of anything else. Is that bad?" Jinho considered the question. "Maybe not. Let them think we're soft. We'll prove them wrong by being exactly what we said we'd be. Helpful, peaceful, cooperative, and if that doesn't work?" Jinho was quiet for a long moment. "Then we'll adapt. That's what humans do best." Outside, the great station continued its slow rotation, home to hundreds of species who thought they understood the newcomers from Earth. They saw a peaceful people from a dangerous world, eager to help and quick to compromise. They had no idea what humans were capable of when their patience finally ran out. For now, that didn't matter. The humans were content to be underestimated. They had learned long ago that the most dangerous predator was often the one that looked the most harmless. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to have humans as neighbors. For everyone's sake, Jinho hoped they would choose to be friends. Captain Wu Jin Nam watched his cargo bay doors close for the last time on Keth Prime, the crystal homeworld of the Veltar. His ship, the New Soul, was loaded with medical supplies bound for the plague-stricken colonies in the Outer Rim. It was the 5th Mercy mission this month, and Wu Jin was proud of the work his crew was doing. "Captain," called his first officer, G1 Park, "we're getting a message from the Galactic Health Authority. They want us to change course." Wu Jin frowned. "Change course?" "These supplies are needed urgently. People are dying." "That's what I told them, sir." "But they insist. They say the Krix Empire has requested exclusive delivery rights to that sector." "The Krix?" Wu Jin shook his head. Since when do they care about helping plague victims? They've never sent aid before. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council as observers. In that time, they had worked hard to prove themselves useful. Dr. So-Young Choi had set up medical research stations on 12 different worlds. Human engineers had helped repair damaged infrastructure after natural disasters. Human diplomats had mediated disputes between smaller species. But lately, things had been getting complicated. Back on the council station, Jinho Park sat in another endless committee meeting. Today's topic was trade route regulations, and the discussion had been going in circles for 3 hours. The human proposal for free passage corridors is unrealistic, declared Hive Speaker Zixtel. Security costs must be covered. The Krix Empire will provide protection for these routes, but shippers must pay appropriate fees. Hannah Kim leaned forward. But these fees are 3 times higher than the previous rates. Smaller traders can't afford them. You're creating a monopoly. Business is business, clicked Zixtel. If human merchants cannot compete, perhaps they should find other work. Jinho kept his face calm, but inside he was frustrated. This was the 4th time this month that Krix security fees had been raised in areas where human traders were doing well. It was starting to look like a pattern. Perhaps we could discuss a graduated fee structure, Jinho suggested. Lower rates for humanitarian missions, medical supplies, food aid, the crystal being Kethver pulsed with slow light. The Veltar support this idea. Human medical aid has helped our colonies greatly. But Zixtel's mandibles clicked in disagreement. Aid missions are often covers for intelligence gathering. All ships must pay the same rates. The meeting ended with no resolution, like so many others. Jinho walked back to the human quarters feeling tired. Hana joined him in his office. They're testing us, she said bluntly. Every proposal we make gets buried in bureaucracy. Every success we have gets undermined somehow. I know, Jinho replied, but we have to be patient. We're still the new species. We have to prove ourselves. By letting them walk all over us? Before Jinho could answer, an urgent message came through. It was from Captain Wu Jin Nam. The new soul had been intercepted by pirates while carrying medical supplies. The attack had been brutal and fast. 12 crew members were dead, including the ship's doctor and 2 young engineers fresh out of the academy. The pirates had taken everything, leaving the ship dead in space, but the worst part was what happened next. When Wu Jin filed his report with the Galactic Council, the response was exactly what Jinho had feared. We express our deep concern about this tragic incident, the official reply read. A full investigation will be launched immediately. We ask for patience while we gather all the facts. It was the same response they had given for the previous 5 attacks on human ships. The investigations never found anything. The pirates were never caught on Earth. General Young Sik Kong read the reports from his office in Seoul as Earth's military commander. He was responsible for protecting human interests in space, but his hands were tied by diplomatic protocols. Sir, said his aide, Colonel Mi-Jin Lee, the attacks are getting worse. The pirates seem to know exactly which ships to target and when. Young Sik studied the star charts on his wall. Red marks showed where human ships had been attacked. The pattern was clear to anyone who bothered to look. Someone is feeding them information, he said quietly. This isn't random piracy. This is organized. What do you want to do about it? Young Sik was quiet for a long moment. For now, nothing. We follow diplomatic channels. But start preparing defensive measures. If this continues, we may need to protect our own people. Meanwhile, Dr. So-Young Choi was dealing with her own problems. Her research station on Veltar Prime had made a breakthrough in treating the crystal rot disease that affected the Veltar. It was a degenerative condition that caused their crystalline bodies to crumble. Over time, her cure could save millions of lives, but when she tried to publish her results, she found that the Galactic Medical Authority had classified her research. The official reason was pending review for safety concerns. The real reason, she suspected, was that certain species didn't want humans to get credit for such an important discovery. Dr. Choi, said her research partner, a young Veltar named Synth. My people are grateful for your work. But the Council is pressuring us to remove human staff from our medical facilities. Why? So Young asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. They say humans are too new, too inexperienced. They suggest we work with established medical providers instead? You mean the Netham Collective? The ones who have been charging triple rates for basic medicine? Synth's crystal body dimmed. With embarrassment, politics and medicine should not mix. But the Council feels differently. Back on the Council station, Jinho was learning just how frustrating galactic politics could be. Every day brought new challenges to human activities. Trade disputes, bureaucratic delays, safety concerns about human technology. The worst part was how reasonable it all sounded. The aliens weren't openly hostile. They expressed concern for human welfare. They spoke of caution and proper procedures. But the result was always the same. Human activities were restricted, delayed, or shut down entirely. Ambassador Park said, flowing through stars during a private meeting, the Netham Collective wishes to discuss a partnership opportunity. What kind of partnership? Jinho asked. We understand humans are having difficulties with trade routes and shipping security. We can offer protection and a safe passage. In exchange, we would like exclusive distribution rights for human medical technology. Jinho kept his expression neutral. That's a generous offer. May I ask why you're interested in helping? U.S.? The galaxy benefits when all species prosper, the gaseous being replied. Though, of course, such prosperity must be properly managed. It was a trap, Jinho realized. And humanity would become dependent on Netham protection, while giving up control of their most valuable contributions. Refuse and the attacks on human ships would probably get worse. I'll need to discuss this with Earth, Jinho said diplomatically. That night, Hana found Jinho standing at the observation deck again, watching the stars. Bad day? She asked. They're all bad days lately, he replied. We came here hoping to be partners. Instead, we're being treated like children who need constant supervision. Or like threats that need to be contained, Jinho nodded. I keep thinking about something my grandfather used to say. He was a soldier during the Unification Wars. He said the most dangerous enemy was the one who smiled while he stabbed you. In the back, are we the enemy now? I don't think they've decided yet, but they're certainly not treating us like friends. Far from the Council station, Captain Wu Jin Nam was back on Earth, attending the funerals of his crew members. He stood in the rain at Seoul Memorial Cemetery, watching as 12 caskets were lowered into the ground. These were good people who had died trying to help others. General Young Sik Kong stood beside him. I'm sorry for your loss, Captain. They died for nothing, Wu Jin said bitterly. Those medical supplies never reached the plague victims. The pirates probably sold them to the highest bidder. Not for nothing. They died trying to make the galaxy a better place. And what did it get them? Empty promises and bureaucratic investigations that go nowhere. Young Sik was quiet for a moment. I want you to know, Captain, that we won't forget this. Every one of these deaths is being recorded. Someday there will be an accounting. That evening, Young Sik called a meeting with his top commanders. The room was filled with men and women who had spent their careers preparing for conflicts that never came. Now they faced a different kind of problem. The situation is deteriorating, Young Sik began. Our people are being killed, our ships are being attacked, and our diplomatic efforts are being sabotaged. The question is, what do we do about it? Colonel Mi-jin Lee spoke first. Our fleet is ready. We could escort our merchant ships, provide real protection. That would be seen as militaristic, replied Admiral Kyung Ho-yoon. It could give them an excuse to expel us from the council entirely. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing, muttered someone from the back of the room. Young Sik raised his hand for silence. We're not there yet. Ambassador Park still believes diplomacy can work. We owe it to him and to our people to try the peaceful approach a little longer. And if it doesn't work? Asked Mi-jin. Young Sik looked around the room at faces he had known for years. These were people who understood sacrifice, who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. They deserved an honest. The emergency alert reached Jinho Park at 0347 station time. He was asleep in his quarters aboard the council station when the COM system woke him with its urgent beeping. The message that followed made his blood turn to ice. New Terra is under attack. Crick's fleet forces have begun orbital bombardment. Colonial government requests immediate assistance. Casualties are heavy and rising. Jinho sat up in his bed staring at the message display. New Terra was humanity's largest colony world, home to 2.3 million people. It was a peaceful farming world with no military installations and no strategic value except for the families who had made it their home. He called Hana Kim immediately. She answered on the first ring, already awake and dressed. "You got the message too?" she asked. "How is this possible?" Jinho demanded. "New Terra is in neutral space. The Galactic Peace Accords forbid attacks on civilian colonies." "Since when do the Cricks care about the peace accords?" "They've been pushing boundaries for months." Jinho was already getting dressed, his hands shaking with anger and fear. His daughter Ji-yoon lived on New Terra with her husband and 2 young children. So did the families of dozens of other human diplomats and workers. The walk to the council chamber felt like it took forever. When Jinho arrived, he found chaos. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting at each other in languages the translators couldn't keep up with. At the center of it all sat Hive Speaker Zixtal, its 4 arms folded in what looked like satisfaction. "Order?" called Kethver, the Veltar representative. Light pulsed through its crystal body in agitated patterns. "We must have order." Jinho pushed through the crowd to the center of the chamber. "What is the meaning of this attack?" he demanded, staring directly at Zixtal. The insect being's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. "Attack? We prefer to call it pest control. The human colony was harboring criminals and terrorists." "That's a lie," Hana shouted. "New Terra is a farming world. They grow food and raise children. There are no terrorists there." "According to our intelligence, the colony was being used as a base for smuggling operations. We had no choice but to act." More lies. Jinho could see it in the way other representatives avoided eye contact. Some looked uncomfortable, others seemed bored. A few actually appeared pleased that someone was finally dealing with the human problem. On the main display screen, images from New Terra began to appear. Jinho watched in horror as Crick's warships rained fire down on cities he had visited just months before. The farming domes where children played were burning. The schools where human and alien teachers worked together were collapsing. "Stop this immediately," Jinho demanded. "Call off your ships?" "The operation will continue until all resistance is eliminated," Zixtal replied calmly. Jinho felt something break inside his chest. He had spent months trying to work within the system, believing that patience and diplomacy would win the day. Now he was watching his people die while alien bureaucrats made excuses. "How many?" he asked quietly. "I'm sorry," said Zixtal. "How many have you killed so far?" The insect being consulted a datapad with one of its arms. "Current casualty estimates suggest approximately 400,000 eliminated, with projections reaching 1.2 million before operations conclude." The chamber fell silent. Even the species that disliked humans seemed shocked by the casual way Zixtal discussed mass murder. Jinho stared at the screen showing his burning colony. Somewhere in those flames were his daughter and grandchildren. Somewhere in that smoke were the dreams of millions of humans who had thought they could build a better life among the stars. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his diplomatic credentials, the golden badge that marked him as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. The symbol of everything he had worked for, he placed it carefully on the table in front of Zixtal. "What is this?" the Crick's representative asked. "Humanity withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and diplomatic protocols with the Galactic Council, effective immediately," Jinho said in a voice so quiet that the entire chamber had to strain to hear him. "You cannot simply leave," protested Flowing Through Stars. "There are procedures, legal requirements. You want to see legal requirements?" Jinho's voice was still soft, but something in his tone made several representatives step backward. Article 12 of the Galactic Peace Accord states that any attack on civilian populations is a crime against sentience. Article 18 states that member species have the right to defend their colonies by any means necessary. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative present. You have just watched the Krix Empire commit genocide against human civilians while this council did nothing. Not only did nothing, but many of you seem pleased by it. Kethver's crystal body pulsed with uncertain light. Ambassador Park, perhaps? We can reach some accommodation. No. The word cut through the chamber like a blade. For months you have treated us like children. You have sabotaged our trade, stolen our discoveries, and ignored attacks on our people. We accepted it because we believed in the idea of a galactic community. Jinho gestured at the burning images of New Terra on the screen. This is your community. This is your idea of civilization? Murder is acceptable as long as the right species does it. Genocide is just pest control if the victims are inconvenient. He turned toward the exit, then stopped. You made one critical error. You assumed that. Because we chose peace, we were incapable of war. You mistook our restraint for weakness, our diplomacy for cowardice. Hive Speaker Zixtel clicked its mandibles dismissively. What will you do, human? File a complaint? Write a strongly worded letter. Your species is soft. Your world may be harsh, but you are not. Jinho smiled, and several representatives later said it was the most terrifying expression they had ever seen on any being's face. You're about to find out exactly how wrong you are. He walked out of the chamber, followed by Hannah and the rest of the human delegation. Behind them, the aliens began arguing again about proper procedures and legal protocols. None of them noticed that the images from New Terra had stopped updating. The Krix ships that had been broadcasting their victory were no longer transmitting. 3 hours later, the first reports began to reach the council station. A Krix patrol fleet had encountered human vessels near the outer edge of the New Terra system. The engagement had lasted exactly 17 minutes. No human ships were destroyed. No Krix ships survived to retreat. Impossible, declared Zixtel. When the reports reached the council, humans have no military vessels, they are traders and farmers. More reports followed. Human ships were appearing throughout Krix space, but they moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They struck like ghosts, destroyed everything they encountered, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. On Earth, General Youngsik Kong stood in the war room beneath Seoul, watching status displays that had been dark for decades. Around him, officers who had spent their careers preparing for a war that never came were finally seeing action. Status report, he commanded. Fifth Fleet has eliminated Krix forces in the New Terra system, reported Admiral Kyung Ho Yoon. Survivors are being evacuated to the colony ships. Casualties? Minimal on our side. We got there before they could. Complete the orbital bombardment. Final civilian casualties are estimated at 800,000. Youngsik closed his eyes. 800,000 people. Men, women, children who had died because humanity had tried to play by someone else's rules. What about the Krix fleet? Total destruction, no survivors. Colonel Mijin Lee looked up from her communications console. Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from Krix frontier colonies. They're requesting protection from their own military. Youngsik wasn't surprised. The Krix Empire had built its power on bullying weaker species. They had never faced an opponent that could hit back harder than they could. Ignore the surrender offers for now. We have bigger concerns. On the main display, a star map showed the current positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Ships that the aliens had thought were simple cargo haulers were revealing their true nature. Humanity had never built pure civilian vessels. Every ship that left Earth had been designed to serve dual purposes. The galaxy was about to learn what humans had been hiding behind their smiles and diplomatic courtesy. Back on the council station, Jinho Park sat in what had been the human quarters. Most of his staff had been evacuated, but he had chosen to stay. Someone needed to witness what was coming. Hannah found him staring out at the stars. The Veltar are requesting a meeting. They want to negotiate. Do they? They're scared, Jinho. Half the council is, they never expected this kind of response. Jinho thought about his daughter Ji-Yoon, who had died in the first wave of Krik's bombardment. He thought about his grandchildren, ages 4 and 7, whose bodies had been found in the wreckage of their school. Let them be scared, he said quietly. They should have thought about consequences before they decided our lives didn't matter. What happens now? Jinho looked out at the stars where human fleets were already moving toward their next targets. The Krik's empire would fall within days. After that, the galaxy would learn what it meant to face a species that had stopped pretending to be civilized. Now they learn what a deathworld species actually looks like when we're not trying to be their friends. In the distance, the transformation began within hours of Jinho Park's declaration. Across human space, ships that had spent months carrying grain and medical supplies suddenly sprouted weapon arrays that had been hidden behind false hulls. Space stations that looked like research facilities revealed defensive systems that could crack moons and half-da engineer. Hey, One Yoon stood in the command center of what the galaxy had known as Research Station Alpha 7. The aliens had believed it was studying stellar formation. In reality, it had been Earth's primary weapons development facility for the past year. Gravitational pulse generators are online, reported her assistant. We can target anything within 3 light years? Hey, One nodded, watching the tactical displays that showed Krik's fleet movements throughout the sector. The insect-like aliens had never faced anything like human military technology. They built big, slow ships designed to intimidate weaker species. Humans built ships designed to hunt. On Earth, the transformation was even more dramatic. Factories that had been producing farming equipment retooled overnight to manufacture weapons. Schools that had been teaching alien languages switched to tactical courses. Children who had been learning about galactic cooperation were now learning about species vulnerabilities. Dr. So-Young Choi sat in her laboratory, looking at research files that would have horrified her 6 months ago. Her medical knowledge, gained through months of helping alien species, was now being weaponized. She knew exactly how each species' biology worked, which meant she knew exactly how to make it stop working. The Veltar respiratory modifications are complete, she told her research team. The bioweapon will be invisible to their crystal-based senses and completely harmless to humans. Deployment time is estimated at 4 hours for total system shutdown. What about the Netham Collective? Asked her assistant. Even easier. Their gas-based biology makes them vulnerable to electromagnetic disruption. A simple pulse weapon will disperse their molecular structure permanently. So-Young had spent her career saving lives. Now she was learning to take them with surgical precision. The irony wasn't lost on her, but she had stopped caring about irony when she watched children die on New Terra. Captain Ji-Yoon Park commanded the first human war fleet to leave Sol System since the declaration. Her ship, the Retribution, had been disguised as a cargo hauler for 8 months. Now its true nature was revealed, a predator built to hunt in the darkness between stars. Sensors detect Krik's patrol squadron at coordinates 127 MARK4, reported her tactical officer. 12 ships, heavy cruiser class? Signal them, Ji-Yoon ordered. The Krik squadron leader appeared on the main screen, its insect features twisted with what might have been confusion. Unknown vessels, you are in violation of Imperial space. Identify yourselves or be destroyed. I am Captain Ji-Yoon Park of the Human Defense Force, she replied calmly. You have 5 minutes to abandon your ships before I destroy them. The Krik's commander's mandibles clicked together in what sounded like laughter. 12 ships against 3. Your mathematics need improvement, human. My mathematics are perfect, Yoon said. 3 human ships against 12 Krik ships means 12 funeral pyres and no survivors to tell the tale. The Krik's attack came exactly as human tactical computers had predicted. Big, slow energy weapons designed to overwhelm enemy shields through brute force. It was the same strategy that had worked against countless weaker species. It lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The Retribution and her sister ships moved through the Crix formation like sharks through a school. Oh, fish. Their weapon systems had been designed by a species that understood efficiency. No wasted energy, no dramatic displays of power. Just precise, calculated destruction. When it was over, 12 Crix ships had become expanding clouds of superheated gas. Not a single human vessel had taken damage. Any survivors? Yun asked. Negative, Captain. Complete destruction across all targets, Yun nodded. It was exactly what she had expected. The Crix had built their empire on intimidation and overwhelming force. They had never learned to fight an opponent that was faster, smarter, and angrier than they were. Back on the Council Station, the alien representatives were learning the true scope of their mistake. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy as human forces revealed themselves. What the aliens had thought was a small population of peaceful traders was actually a carefully orchestrated intelligence operation. Impossible, muttered flowing through stars. Its gaseous form rippling with agitation. Human population reports showed only 12 million individuals in space. How can they field this many ships? Kethavra's crystal body pulsed with rapid nervous light. The humans have been lying to us from the beginning. Every trade mission, every cultural exchange, every research station, it was all gathering intelligence on our capabilities and weaknesses. Hive speaker Zixtel remained defiant despite the mounting reports of Crix fleet losses. A few lucky strikes mean nothing. The Empire has thousands of ships, millions of warriors. These humans will exhaust themselves against our superior numbers. But the reports kept coming and they painted a terrifying picture. Human forces weren't just winning battles, they were eliminating entire Crix fleets without taking casualties. More disturbing were the reports from Crix colonies that had surrendered. The humans weren't interested in surrender. They weren't taking prisoners. They were simply erasing the Crix presence from the galaxy, on Earth. President Cho Min-jun addressed the world from the United Nations building in New York. He had been elected on a platform of peace and cooperation. Now he stood before humanity as a war leader. My fellow humans, he began. For months we have tried to find our place in galactic civilization. We offered friendship, cooperation, and aid to any who needed it. We asked only for the same in return. The images behind him showed the burning remains of New Terra, the ships lost to piracy, the families destroyed by alien greed and cruelty. Instead, we were treated as inferior beings whose lives had no value. Our people were murdered, our colonies attacked, our children killed for the crime of being human. His voice hardened. Today that ends. Today, the galaxy learns what it means to face Earth's children when we stop trying to be civilized. General Young-Sik Kang watched the address from his command center, surrounded by displays showing human fleet movements across known space. The scale of the operation would have been impossible for most species to coordinate, but humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to work together against overwhelming odds. Status report, he commanded. Crix Fourth Fleet has been eliminated, reported Admiral Kyung-ho-yoon. That's their entire frontier defense force. The way to their core worlds is now open. Casualties on our side? 17 wounded, none killed. The medical teams report that most injuries were from equipment malfunctions, not enemy action. Young-Sik nodded grimly. The Crix had built their military to fight enemies who thought like they did, enemies who would meet force with force, who would accept acceptable losses in exchange for territorial gains. They had no idea how to fight an opponent that refused to play by their rules. Colonel Mi Jin-Lee looked up from her intelligence console. Sir, we're receiving communications from the Veltar government. They're offering to mediate peace talks. Are they? They seem genuinely frightened. Reports indicate that half the Galactic Council is in emergency session, trying to figure out how to respond to our sudden aggression. Young-Sik almost smiled. Sudden aggression. As if months of provocations, attacks on civilian ships, and the massacre of New Terra counted for nothing. As if humans were somehow the unreasonable ones for finally fighting back. Tell the Veltar that humanity is no longer interested in mediation. We tried diplomacy, we tried patience, we tried playing by their rules, now we play by ours. In space. Above Crix Prime, the insect species homeworld, Captain Wu Jin Nam commanded a fleet of ships that had once carried medical supplies to plague-stricken worlds. The same medical knowledge that had once saved alien lives now guided weapons designed to end them. "The planetary defense grid is impressive," reported his tactical officer. 47 orbital platforms, each armed with enough firepower to level a continent. "How long to disable them using conventional weapons?" Wu Jin asked. "Estimated 6 hours, with heavy casualties expected." Wu Jin thought about his crew members who had died protecting medical supplies for alien colonies. He thought about the children on New Terra who had been killed while their parents begged for mercy. Use the gravity bombs. "I want every platform reduced to atoms within 10 minutes. Sir, that level of destruction will be visible from the surface. The psychological impact on the population will be severe." "Good, let them understand what it feels like to be helpless while death falls from the sky." The attack was swift and total. Crix orbital defenses that had protected the homeworld for 1,000 years simply ceased to exist. On the planet below, billions of Crix looked up to see human ships hanging in their sky like dark omens. Wu Jin opened a communication channel to the planetary government. "I am Captain Wu Jin, Nam of the Human Defense Force. You have 1 hour to evacuate all government officials and military personnel from your world. After that, we begin sterilization protocols." The Crix planetary leader, a massive insect whose size indicate. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 12 hours straight. Representatives from over 200 species packed the great chamber, their voices raised in panic and confusion. The careful order that had governed galactic civilization for millennia was crumbling as reports of human military actions flooded in from across known space. "The Crix Empire is gone," announced Kethver, the Veltar representative. Light pulsed through its crystal body in patterns of distress. Not defeated, not conquered, gone. Entire worlds sterilized, their populations scattered to the void. In 72 hours, a civilization that lasted 3,000 years has been erased. "Impossible," protested a representative from the Zephyrian Consortium. "No single species has that kind of military power. The humans are farmers and traders." Flowing through stars rippled with agitation in its containment suit. "We have been deceived. Every human merchant ship, every research station, every cultural exchange, it was all preparation for this moment." On the main display, tactical reports showed the scope of human operations. What looked like chaos to alien minds was actually a carefully coordinated campaign that struck at every weakness in galactic civilization. Simultaneously, Admiral Wu Jin Nam stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the last Crix stronghold burn in the darkness of space. His fleet had just finished eliminating the final pocket of resistance in what had once been the heart of their empire. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the captured Crix Admiral Victal. He's requesting permission to speak with you. Put him through." The insect being that appeared on screen looked nothing like the proud warrior caste that had terrorized weaker species for centuries. Victal's carapace was cracked, his mandibles hung loose, and one of his 4 eyes had been damaged beyond repair. "I don't understand," Victal said, his voice carrying the electronic whine of a failing translator. "We studied your species. Your ships were slow cargo haulers. Your weapons were primitive mining tools. Your tactics were defensive, cautious. How is this possible?" Wu Jin studied the broken creature before him. This was one of the beings who had ordered the massacre of New Terra, who had laughed as human children died in burning schools. "You made one critical error," Wu Jin said quietly. "You assumed that because we chose peace, we were incapable of war. You mistook our civilization for weakness. But your technology, your ships, where did they come from? They were always there. Did you really think a species from a deathworld would explore space without being prepared for the dangers they might find? Every human ship that left Earth was designed to fight. Every research station was a forward military base. Every cultural exchange gathered intelligence on your weaknesses. Victor's remaining eyes widened in comprehension. You planned this. From the beginning. The peaceful approach, the diplomatic overtures, it was all deception. No, Wujin replied. We genuinely wanted peace. We hoped that showing good faith would be met with good faith in return. You taught us otherwise. He leaned forward, his voice hardening. You want to know how this is possible? I'll tell you. Humans don't just adapt to threats, we become them. You showed us that the galaxy respects only strength, so we became strong. You showed us that mercy is seen as weakness, so we became merciless. You created us, Admiral. We are exactly what you taught us to be. The transmission cut off, leaving Victile alone with the knowledge that his species had authored their own destruction on Earth. The war room beneath Seoul had become the nerve center for operations across the galaxy. General Young Sik Kang stood before a three-dimensional display showing human fleet positions and target priorities. What had begun as a response to the New Terra massacre had evolved into something far more comprehensive. Status report on Operation Judgment, he commanded. Colonel. Mi Jin Lee consulted her datapad. The Krix Empire has been completely eliminated. Estimated time to completion, 6 hours. The Netham Collective is requesting negotiation through Veltar intermediaries. The Outer Rim pirates have abandoned their bases and are fleeing toward uncharted space. What about the species that stayed neutral? Most are maintaining strict non-interference policies. The Altarian Federation has actually begun broadcasting messages of support for human actions. They apparently lost several colonies to Krix expansion fleets over the past decade. Young Sik nodded. The galaxy was learning that humanity's war wasn't random violence, it was selective justice. Species that had remained neutral or actively opposed the attacks on human settlements were being left alone. Those that had participated in or benefited from anti-human activities were discovering the consequences of their choices. Sir, reported Admiral Kyung Ho Yoon from his position at the Fleet Coordination Center, we're receiving an interesting development. Several Krix colony worlds have been abandoned by their military forces. The civilian populations are requesting human protection from their own government's retaliation policies. Retaliation policies? Apparently the Krix leadership has decided that any colony that survives human attack must have collaborated with us. They're sending ships to cleanse their own worlds rather than let them fall into human hands. Young Sik closed his eyes for a moment. Even in defeat, the Krix were proving why they had needed to be stopped. What's the status of those civilian populations? Approximately 40 million individuals across 12 worlds. Mixed species, not just Krix. Many are refugees from worlds the Krix Empire conquered in recent decades. The general considered his options. The original plan had been total elimination of Krix presence in the galaxy. But these were civilians, many of whom had been victims of the same imperial policies that had led to the New Terra massacre. Deploy humanitarian fleets to those worlds. Establish protective perimeters and begin evacuation operations for any non-combatants who request it. Sir, Mi-jin said carefully, some of our commanders might see this as inconsistent with our overall strategy. Our strategy is justice, not genocide. We eliminate threats to human safety and punish those responsible for our people's deaths. We don't murder children because their parents made bad choices. It was a distinction that was apparently lost on much of the galaxy. As news of human mercy operations spread, many alien species found themselves confused by the apparent contradiction in human behavior. Special Forces. Commander Min Ho-young led one of these operations on the former Krix colony world of Terdius Prime. His team had expected to find a military garrison. Instead, they found 3 million refugees from a dozen different species, all living in fear of both human attack and Krix retaliation. Commander, reported his second-in-command, the local administrator wants to surrender the planet formally. He says they have no military assets and requests protection under galactic humanitarian protocols. Min-ho looked out over the sprawling refugee camps that covered what had once been a Krix military base. Children of species he had never seen before played in the dust while their parents worked desperately to build some kind of normal life. Tell the administrator we'll establish a protective perimeter. Any Krix military forces that approach this world will be destroyed, but civilian populations are under human protection. Sir, the refugees are asking if they'll be relocated or if they can stay. They can stay if they want. This world is no longer part of the Krix Empire. As of today, it's an independent colony under human protection. It was decisions like this that began to change how the galaxy saw humanity's war. This wasn't conquest for the sake of expansion. It wasn't even revenge in the traditional sense. It was something far more sophisticated and terrifying. It was the systematic reconstruction of galactic civilization according to human principles, intelligence. Director Sujin, you worked from a facility that officially didn't exist, coordinating information warfare operations across hundreds of worlds. Her teams had spent months infiltrating alien communication networks, and now that investment was paying dividends. The Veltar government is in chaos, she reported to General Young-Sik during their daily briefing. 3 separate factions are arguing over how to respond to our ultimatum. The military wants to prepare for war, the business leaders want to negotiate, and the civilian government wants to surrender preemptively. What ultimatum? Young-Sik asked. The one we didn't send. Our misinformation campaigns have convinced them that we've issued demands for complete submission. They're tearing themselves apart trying to decide how to respond to something that doesn't exist. Young-Sik almost smiled. Sujin's psychological warfare operations were proving more effective than conventional weapons. What about the Netham Collective? Complete governmental collapse. They're a consensus-based society, and they can't reach consensus on anything related to humans. Some want to attack us, others want to surrender, still others want to pretend we don't exist. The paralysis is so complete that their trade networks are shutting down. This was humanity's true advantage in galactic warfare. They didn't just fight harder than other species, they fought smarter. Every aspect of alien society was being turned against itself through careful manipulation of information and careful exploitation of pre-existing tensions. Captain Ji Yun Park commanded the human fleet that had been tasked with neutralizing. 2 years had passed since the New Terra massacre. The galaxy that emerged from humanity's war looked nothing like the one that had existed before. Where once there had been aggressive empires and predatory species, now there was order. Where once there had been exploitation and suffering, now there was what humans called managed stability. President Jinho Park stood at the podium in the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber. The great space station had been reconstructed according to human specifications, more efficient, more secure, and with very clear lines of authority. Around him sat representatives from the 347 species that remained in what was now called the Terran Protectorate. The Krix were gone. Not a single member of their species remained alive anywhere in known space. Their worlds had been cleansed and resettled by refugees from the species they had oppressed. Their name existed only in historical records as a warning to others. Fellow beings, Jinho began, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had watched his people burn and then made sure it could never happen again. 2 years ago, we stood in this chamber as naive newcomers, hoping to find our place in galactic civilization. The representatives listened in complete silence. Some from fear, others from respect, but all from the understanding that when humans spoke, the galaxy listened. We offered friendship and received exploitation. We offered cooperation and received manipulation. We offered peace and received war. Behind him, holographic displays showed the current state of galactic civilization. Trade routes that ran on time and without piracy. Colonies that prospered under human protection. Species that had learned to resolve disputes through negotiation rather than force. Today we have peace. Not because we are weak, but because we have made weakness itself impossible. Not because we are kind, but because we have made cruelty unprofitable. In the audience, Kethver of the Veltar sat in a section reserved for tributary species. The crystal being's light patterns were subdued, respectful. The Veltar had been among the first to accept human authority after witnessing what happened to those who resisted. They now served as administrators for several human-protected worlds, and had found the work surprisingly fulfilling. Flowing through stars no longer flowed. The gaseous being had compressed itself into a rigid form that allowed for more efficient communication with human authorities. The Netham Collective had been dissolved, its constituent beings now working as individual contractors in the human trade network. Many reported being happier without the constant pressure of consensus building that had paralyzed their previous society. Admiral G. Yoon Park commanded the fleets that patrolled the galaxy's trade routes. Her ships were no longer disguised as merchant vessels. They flew openly as humanity's sword and shield, ensuring that the new order remained stable. Pirates had become extinct as a profession. Aggressive expansion had become impossible as a political strategy. War itself had become something that required human permission. "Status report," she commanded from the bridge of her flagship, the New Terra's Vengeance. "All sectors report normal operations," replied her communications officer. "No incidents, no threats, no requests for intervention." It had been like this for 18 months. The galaxy had learned to police itself according to human standards because the alternative was human intervention, and human intervention was swift, thorough. And final dot on Earth, General Young Sik Kong had transitioned from wartime commander to peacetime administrator. His office in Seoul now coordinated not just military operations, but the vast bureaucracy required to manage an interstellar civilization. The work was challenging, but satisfying in ways that pure military command had never been. "Sir," reported Colonel Mi-Jin Lee, "we're receiving the quarterly reports from the regional governors. Compliance with Terran Protectorate guidelines is at 97.3% across all monitored species." What about the remaining 2.7%? Minor infractions. Mostly some black market trading and restricted technologies, a few instances of workplace safety violations, one case of a local government trying to impose discriminatory policies against refugee populations. Responses? Standard protocols. Economic. Sanctions for the traders, safety inspections for the violators, administrative review for the discriminatory government. The usual. Young Sik nodded. The galaxy had learned that human justice was predictable, proportional, and inescapable. Species that followed the rules prospered. Those that broke them faced consequences that were swift and appropriate to their crimes. It was a system that worked because it was based on consistency rather than favoritism. Dr. So Young Choi had returned to her original calling of healing, but her work now carried the weight of absolute authority. Her medical research stations were scattered throughout the galaxy, treating diseases and injuries for any species that requested help. The treatments were free, effective, and came with the implicit understanding that human medicine could cure anything or could be withheld from anyone. "The Altarian plague has been eliminated," she reported during the monthly medical briefing. "Complete success across all affected worlds. No casualties, no lasting effects. The Veltar crystal rot treatment is showing excellent results," added her research coordinator. "We've cured the condition in over 90% of cases." "And the Zephyrian reproductive disorders?" "Solved 3 months ago." "Birth rates in their colonies have increased by 40% since we implemented the genetic therapy program." It was work that So Young found deeply satisfying. She was saving lives on a galactic scale, and no one could interfere with her efforts because humanity controlled the resources necessary to make it happen. Captain Wu Jin Nam had been promoted to the sector admiral, responsible for maintaining order in what had once been the most dangerous region of space. The Outer Rim, where pirates had once preyed on merchant vessels, was now a network of prosperous trading posts and agricultural colonies. The former pirate stronghold at Kepler Station has completed its transition to agricultural production, he reported to his staff. Crop yields are exceeding projections by 30%. "What about the former pirates themselves?" asked his aide. "Most have been successfully rehabilitated. Turns out many of them were refugees or displaced persons who turned to piracy because they had no other options. Give them honest work and fair wages, and they prefer it to violence? Any problems with recidivism? A few tried to return to their old ways. They discovered that human law enforcement is more efficient than their previous victims. The problems corrected themselves quickly. This was the genius of the human approach to galactic governance. They didn't rule through fear alone, but through the systematic elimination of the conditions that created conflict. Poverty, injustice, and desperation were treated as problems to be solved rather than facts of life to be endured. Intelligence. Director Sujin Yu worked from her facility that still officially didn't exist, but her role had changed dramatically. Instead of coordinating warfare against alien species, she now managed the vast information networks that kept the Terran Protectorate functioning smoothly. Economic projections for the next quarter show continued growth across all sectors, she reported to President Jinho. Trade volume is up 18% from pre-war levels, and crime rates continue to decline. Any security concerns? Few minor separatist movements, mostly on worlds that remember the good old days when they could oppress their neighbors without consequence. Nothing that can't be handled through standard diplomatic channels. Meaning? We explain the benefits of continued cooperation and the costs of non-compliance. Most choose cooperation. The truth was that the galaxy had learned to prefer human rule to the chaos that had existed before. Trade was more profitable, colonies were safer, and disputes were resolved quickly and fairly. The few species that still resented human authority did so quietly, because the alternative to human protection was returning to a universe where might made right. Captain Yeonwoo Kim commanded the exploration vessel New Horizon, part of humanity's ongoing mission to map the galaxy and make contact with previously undiscovered species. His work was similar to what Jinho Park had done years earlier, but with one crucial difference: everyone knew exactly what humanity was capable of. "Captain," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the fourth planet in this system. They appear to have achieved basic spaceflight and are requesting contact." Yeonwoo studied the data from this new species. They called themselves the Morduk, and their society appeared to be based on conquest and exploitation of weaker neighbors. Their message was full of boasts about their military strength and demands that the humans submit to their authority. "How should we respond, Captain?" asked his first officer. Yeonwoo thought about the choice that the galaxy had made with humanity years earlier. The decision to treat human offers of friendship as signs of weakness. The assumption that a peaceful approach meant an inability to fight. "Open the channel," he commanded. The Morduk who appeared on screen was a reptilian creature with scarred hide and cybernetic implants that suggested a warrior culture. Its voice carried arrogance and contempt. "Unknown vessel, you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. I am War Leader Gregtor of the Morduk Empire. We claim this system and all vessels within I."